Okay, so what are you saying, people, and welcome back to your favorite YouTube channel. So today, guys, like always, another weekly analysis for you. On the screen, other pairs we'll be analyzing today, but make sure you stay to the end of the video because I do have a bonus pair in store. But yeah, guys, we'll go for my trades for the week first and obviously progress into the analysis shortly after. If there is a pair you want to see, feel free to skip ahead using the timestamps below. But I had two positions this week. One was a loss, one I'm still holding over the weekend. The loss I took was on pound CAD. Came into a nice area of confluence on the 4H time frame. I was looking to catch the next higher low. You can see the market was gaining some nice momentum to the upside. I was trying to catch the next swing low there. Had some good confidence in the higher time frames. Came back to retest a really nice level there on the daily chart. We've also got successive higher highs and higher lows. The market is comfortably bullish on the higher time frame, so simply just looking to continue that bullish trend. However, this trade didn't play out, didn't cooperate, and obviously been taken out for a loss. But looking back, it was a perfect trade. It fit the plan well, just it did play out. And again, that's what's going to happen with trading. No matter how good the possibility is, with the confluence is whatever, some trades just won't play out, and this is definitely one of them. And I took a second position, Aodu CAD, equally as good a setup. This one currently running in a bit of profit. I think maybe just underneath 1R, yeah, around 0.8. So a little bit of profit with this one. Still early doors. I entered this one on Thursday on the 4H time frame of that bearish candle. Again, came into a nice area of confidence. This was on the watch list coming into the week, and so was pound CAD as well. So I was keen to trade these setups. Gone to pound CAD on Thursday, and now we're holding it over the weekend. I'm looking at push back down to the lows. You can see again on the daily chart, comfortable bearish trend at play. So I'm just trying to take advantage of that trend and looking for a push into these swing lows here, which we still got a little bit of a way to go and hit, looking at maybe like a 1 to 3.5, 3.4, something like that. But of course, I will be taking partials at this area here. So that will reduce the risk reward, but it does protect the downside of the trade as well. But that's the trades I had on this week. So one loss, one I'm still holding. We'll see what happens with the Aodu CAD. Obviously, I'll keep you updated throughout the week and when we do the next weekly analysis. But on to the analysis for next week. So Euro USD, as always, still looking bearish. We had a bearish bias coming to the week for this one. Still seeing more downside. Euro USD has been a little bit choppy. The corrections are more lower time frames. 4H is looking a little bit choppy, but going to the hourly, maybe even lower, some bit more healthy pullbacks there, similar to what we had in gold the past couple of weeks. But nonetheless, Euro USD still heading to the downside, and it looks like we are breaking through some significant level of support. This was our target, and prices broken through that quite comfortably for nice bearish candle breaking through. So the next area of value lies back down at this support level here, just underneath 1.07. So again, going into next week, the following week, I still do see more downside for Euro. Might see a bit more pullback. Maybe the corrective nature of the market still might continue. But now that we've broken through 1.085, the next key target is 1.06700. So that's what I'm expecting Euro USD to head to next. The market is still pretty consistent with the lower lows and the lower highs here, so I'm expecting that nature to continue. And it looks like we have come back for a retest of this area, but possibly we could come back, retest it again on Monday, and potentially look for some sales early on. So I really do like Euro USD, but I would probably stick to the lower time frames, hourly, 30-minute, maybe even lower as well, just to maximize that risk reward, because the pullbacks we're seeing are not quite they're not very big. So looking at the 4H and beyond might not be the best time frame for risk to reward and for entries as well. But dropping to the lower time frames, we've just broken through a key level of support, as we can see. Now that we turn resistance, market still consistent with the lower highs. If we can stay below 1.085, I do fancy another swing to the downside. Again, you can target the lows here. If you're feeling a little bit more confident, you've obviously got the lows there just underneath 1.07 as well. But yeah, Euro USD still bearish. All I'm seeing is lower highs and lower lows consecutively. Market keeps breaking structure. Daily's looking bearish as well. I do believe we've broken through a trend line as well on the daily time frame. So yeah, as you can see, we're breaking through that structure there as well. So a lot of confluence is pointing to the downside for Euro USD. For me, the next target's just underneath 1.07 for next week, but keep an eye on a retest of 1.08300 for some sells. Okay, so on to dollar yen. So dollar yen still bullish this week, and again we are still pretty bullish on the pair. High time frame still look very bullish to me. Still seeing higher highs and higher lows on the daily chart. Weekly still showing a lot of momentum. And we're still looking for a push back to 150 all the way up here. So we've still got a fair bit way to go. And again, I'm not expecting just to see, smooth push to the upside and price just goes and hits 150. We might pull back, we might retrace, might consolidate for a little bit, then push eventually. So that's kind of what I'm expecting with dollar yen. It could obviously just fly to the upside. I have no idea what the future has in store, but from a technical, analytical perspective, higher time frames as well, there's a good chance of us getting to 150. So I'm looking at buys as long as we maintain this bullish structure. 4H is doing just that. We're still seeing consecutive higher highs and higher lows. Market came into a nice area of confluence this week around 145. Had a slight breakthrough, so it did look like we might be pulling lower during the middle of the week, but then we quickly redeemed that level, used it as support, and they continued to the upside, and now we're trading back at the highs here at 146,500. So for me, I'm still expecting more upside, still seeing consistent higher highs and higher lows. So the next area of confluence, or the next trading opportunity I see, is if we can break through the resistance, look for some pullbacks, and then look for to catch the next higher low, because the longs are kind of already gone unless you bought down there at 145. It doesn't make any sense to be looking to buy dollar yen now, approaching that same critical resistance, which could potentially send us down. It sent us to the downside a couple times. Could be looking at a third as well. So we want price to break through, show some evidence that the buyers are back in control. We know the market is bullish, but let's see if we can start breaking resistance again on the 4H, and then look for some pullbacks onto an area of confluence, maybe retest the trend line as well. This could provide our next high probability opportunity to get involved. And again, in terms of targets, you can keep it simple, back to high. So if you do see a nice break to the upside, wherever that high forms, that could be a nice target. If you're looking to be a bit more confident, then you can probably push to 150, although like I said, it might not be a smooth move. We could probably push, pull back, maybe take you out break even. So that's up to you how you're going to manage your trade. But if you do push to the upside, create a nice swing high, that would make a nice logical target. Not too sure about the risk reward. We'll have to see when that forms. But anywhere we form around this area would make a lot of sense. Again, looking to the left, there isn't really a concrete area I'll target. Possibly some of these highs here would make sense. So yeah, if that's within your means, within your strategy, within your management, then feel free. But if you can just form a high somewhere, that would make a lot more sense as well. But 150 is the longer term target we are working towards. So dollar yen still seeing higher highs and higher lows, as we can see. Let's see if we can break through 146,500. Look for some pullbacks after that. Then again, still expecting another higher low to form and more upside going forward. Okay, so on to USD CAD. So USD CAD, we've been very bullish on USD CAD for quite a while, and price has just hit some critical targets on the daily time frame, which is just more or less the 1.365 area, I believe. Yeah, 1.365. So we're coming back into a very solid level of resistance. We do have this higher time frame trend line almost coming into play in that vicinity as well. So we can imagine that a lot of buyers will be looking to take some profit, maybe sellers will be looking to step in on the higher time frames as well. So although I am still technically bullish on USD CAD, if that higher time frame trend line on the weekly chart is going to play its part and fulfill the next swing to the upside, we could be looking at push back to the highs more or less around 1.4. You can see successive higher lows every time we respect the trend line. We have seen new highs, so we could be seeing that again with a push back to that resistance. So there could be more upside at play with USD CAD, and especially with DXY still looking strong as well. However, we are approaching some significant resistance, so buys do not make much sense right now. And the fact is, we're also quite corrective coming into this area here as well. So there is definitely room for retracement for a move to the downside. If we see dollar CAD suddenly just break through the area, then of course some pullbacks after that will look good, and continuations as well. But if we just show a lot of rejection around here, failure to break through, maybe the market starts giving us some lower lows and lower highs to work with, then shorts would make the most sense for dollar CAD going into next week, or probably towards the end of next week, because we need to see that development first. And probably some sells for a move back to the downside. This is not a bad target. We could be looking at having deeper retracement for us to go bullish later on. So yeah, dollar CAD for me, I'm taking a pause in that bullish bias because of where we're coming into. Doesn't make much sense looking to buy unless, like I said before, we break through. But if the market starts showing some really strong rejection, more or less around that area. I'll be waiting for the market to shift bearish, at least give me some lower lows and lower highs to work with. Then yeah, on a retest of a potential level that we can create next week, I'll be looking to short and probably targets around here 1.338 make the most sense. So for me, for dollar CAD, although I'm bullish, I'm pausing on that bias, waiting to see how we develop. If we get some nice bearish structure, I will be looking for some short-term sell opportunities back down to 1.338. If not, if you just break through, then we can start looking for some buys above. But because of where we are, more likely to see some bearish pressure coming in. So keep an eye on those sells from 1.35-ish, depending where we create structure. But could be looking at pushback down to 1.338 next week. Okay, so euro pound. So euro pound is still quite choppy for me. I did say I want to see a move to downside, break through some of these lows here, which we technically did, but we didn't really get any significant candle closures below. So we did break through this low here, but this low still remains intact because yes, we did wick below it and see some new lows from that perspective. We didn't get any solid candle closures and not really a lot of momentum telling us, okay, we're really breaking through. It's more like price is actually just respecting that level of support. So I can see some sell opportunities because the market is a little bit bearish with these lower lows and lower highs, and also take into account the higher time frames are quite bearish as well. Again, it's a downtrend, but it's very choppy downtrend, but there is a downtrend at play here, as we can see. So I do favor the sells from that perspective, but I would want to see a deeper pullback for us to get that next lower high somewhere and then a move to the downside. So I am looking at the market coming a little bit high into this area here around 0.86400, and then possibly some sells from around there. Again, I have to admit it's not my favorite setup in the world because in all honesty, this price action between that high there and this low can just be treated as consolidation. We're still kind of trading with a big level of support on our left, which the market's failing to break through essentially as well. So it definitely is my favorite setup, but if I can see better opportunities, well, I can see better opportunities, so they'll probably make my watch list rather than euro pound. But if you're keen to trade euro pound, again, waiting for price to come up high into that consolidation near enough this area here, we could probably see another lower high form. We do have the higher time frames, which are still bearish on the daily chart, which could definitely help with confluence and playing into a hand for the sellers. But I would avoid doing anything kind of in this vicinity here unless we come up high or even down low. Some buys down on that support could make sense as well. Just kind of looking to take advantage of those swings, bouncing from resistance and bouncing from support. But for me, because we're starting to get a nice bearish trend, we're seeing some decent momentum in the market as well. Sells do make sense back around here, trying to catch the next lower high roughly around 0.864, and if you're lucky, could probably see a push right back down to the lows around 0.85 as well. So the sells don't look all that bad. Again, in terms of the nature of the market, it's definitely not my favorite, but if we can see some decent rejection around that 0.864 mark, could make up for some really nice swings back down to the lows for euro pound next week. Okay, so over to Aodu USD. So still bearish bias with this one, that we did come into a nice area of confluence, retesting this price swing low here on the left, and also that trend line there as well. I was actually debating between this trade and Aodu CAD. Of course, Aodu USD and Aodu CAD are quite similar trades, so I just decided to take one of them, and I also was in pound CAD at the time as well, so I didn't want to start overexposing myself. So I debated between Aodu USD and Aodu CAD, and I liked Aodu CAD a little bit better because it had a slightly deeper retracement, whereas Aodu USD is kind of still a little bit choppy, and it's kind of overextended a little bit, although you could probably make a similar case to Aodu CAD, but I chose Aodu CAD in the end. But a very similar opportunity here on Aodu USD coming into this area here. So again, still looking for this one to drop to the downside. Long-term targets still remain back at these lows at 0.62. It's kind of slowly making our way towards those lows there. So in my books, everything is kind of on schedule with Aodu USD. In terms of opportunities next week, probably looking at price breaking through the lows here and then looking for some pullbacks after that, because this is a very strong support with multiple rejections. So if you weren't in the trade higher up, it's not really a good opportunity to be getting involved now. So breaking through that support tells us, okay, the market's still bearish, still seeing consecutive lower lows and lower highs. The bears are still successfully breaking structure, so some pullbacks, retests will make a lot of sense. We've already got a lot of higher time frame backing, weekly, daily, showing a lot of bearish momentum. So taking sells in these conditions are a no-brainer. There's good confidence around. There's a good probability the market does move lower. So taking break and retest on some good areas of confluence are some really good opportunities. Again, it won't always work no matter how good the trade, but at least you got a lot of backing in your favor. So keep an eye for a break and retest of this opportunity, of this level for that opportunity, similar to dollar yen as well, but going the opposite direction, waiting for that resistance to break, and then looking for some retest to get involved. In terms of targets, you could possibly look at 0.62 down there. It is a little bit far away. We do have this low here at 0.62791, a little bit closer. So that could make a little bit more sense in terms of trying not to be too greedy. But again, it's up to you how you manage your trade and your targets, whatever. But that's what I'm looking at next week for AUSD. Let's see if we can break through that support, look for some more retests. Let's see some nice bearish momentum back as well. And yeah, looking for more downside next week. Okay, so onto NZD CAD. So still bearish for this market. It has been quite choppy, I have to admit. The market's kind of a little bit sideways in this area, but I still do see a comfortable downtrend on our hands here, especially in the higher time frames as well. As we can see, long term, there is still very much a possibility coming back to these lows, 0.766. And we're looking at price coming to these lows first of all, which we're not too far away, around 0.79 500 we'll call it. So still looking at a bit of downside, and I still see some room to the upside for NZD CAD, looking at these wicks here connecting the highs and looking at retest of the support level, which we did have during the week. This happened during the Asian session, so I wasn't really interested with the price action here. So this was coming to the end of the day. Into the Asian session, which I'm not at the charts at, but if next week you can see another move into this level in session, test that trendline confidence, test that level resistance again, potentially give us like a nice double top, I will be interested in some shorts. Obviously I am in Aodu CAD, but if I can get that to break even, then I'll be more than happy to get into NZD CAD, or if I get stopped out, I'll be more than happy to get into NZD CAD as well for some sales. The market for me is still creating successive lower highs, as we can see here, still seeing a bearish trend on the higher time frames as well. So there is a lot of evidence that the market could potentially go lower. And again, in terms of targets, back down to the prior lows, very sensible. And obviously you've got the daily targets just underneath that as well, so it's up to you how you're going to manage that trade. But NZD CAD for me is still comfortably bearish, has been a little bit sideways, so I want to be making sure that I'm trading as high up as possible and having a stop loss above the highs, which is sensible, because in here it's kind of 50-50 what the market's going to do next. But if we can see a push up higher, back to a nice area of confluence, have a safe stop loss, then we could be very comfortable with the trade, because if the market does break through the resistance and take a stop loss, we might be getting a short-term reversal instead, so we can get out of the market, wait for that to be over, and then get back involved. Or at least that's how I would look to tackle it. But if you can hold that area, I do see a lot more downside for NZD CAD, back to the lows at 0.8 we'll call it. But we're looking at that next daily target at 0.79500 next week. Okay, so pound NZD up next. Still very bullish on this pair. We have seen some downside over the past couple of days or so. I'm still treating that as retracement. I do like this level down here still. It's a very nice level of resistance. Didn't really come back for a retest, so I would still be interested for some longs off this 2.09 level. However, the market's quite far away from that. I'm not too sure we'll pull back and retest it. So looking at the market, I'm still very bullish. I'm still expecting these wicks, that wick in particular, to be taken out in the weekly time frame. So I do still see a lot more upside for pound NZD. So moves to the downside, I'll just be treating as retracement, expecting the market to eventually find a higher low, as it's been doing for quite some time now, as we can see here. So I'm still looking for that pattern to continue and the market to push back to highs. However, because that level is so far away, there isn't really a level that I'm looking at within here. There's not a lot of price action, not a lot to work with. So what I'll be doing next week is kind of just waiting for the market to print more candles, print more price action. Maybe we start to consolidate in this area, look for a break and retest. That could be a nice buy. Looking to try and catch that reversal off that higher low and let's take that to the upside. So that could be a nice opportunity, but again, we need more candlesticks, a bit more information before looking to jump into any longs just yet. Possibly could see some longs down here, but in my opinion, it's just very, very far away. So especially for next week as well. So I will kind of just focus on this range here, 2.135, and also the low of the range, 2.12. If you can break through that to the upside, nice little break and retest. You've got a nice little high there to work with. Don't necessarily need to target the weekly wick just yet. You can get more than enough risk reward with that opportunity on itself. So that's kind of what I'm looking at for pound NZD. But yeah, I would like a little bit more data to work with, a bit more price action to work with, just to really cement if that's a strong level or not. But only time will tell going into next week. But for now, looking at a bit of a range there between those two levels. Break to the upside, some decent momentum, look for a retest, looking at push back to the highs next week at 2.158. Okay, so on to CAD Yen. So CAD Yen is still bullish on this one, although the price action is not particularly fantastic. We're still failing to break through resistance here, still failing to break through the highs. I did say coming into the week that the market is maintaining the higher lows. It's just not creating higher highs. So we had equal lows down there, higher low over here. It looks like the market's printed another higher low. I was talking about this area of confluence coming back to retest this broken resistance turn support, and also we had a nice trend line going through the market there as well, which we kind of faked a little bit, but looks like we are getting back above. So with CAD Yen, I am bullish. I am looking for more upside. However, I would like to see the market start breaking through some resistance, show me some higher highs, show me that, okay, the buys are back with strength and that the trend is likely to continue. Because although I'm pretty bullish looking at the higher time frames like the daily and the weekly still showing a lot of momentum, still looking for us to come back into the resistance here at 109.475. So that's the target for CAD Yen. But on the 4H time frame, we'll get mixed signals. So if we can break through the resistance, show us some nice momentum and then some pullbacks afterwards, that would interest me for some longs. And again, quite a few setups this week, kind of waiting for price to break through some resistance or break through some support, just to show us that, okay, the trend is still likely to continue. Because again, that's where my real edge is in the market, in the trending market. If the market is trending, it has a high probability of continuing in that direction, whether it's up or down, than it does not. So there's an edge there in itself, just taking good opportunities with confluence in that direction, kind of creates the edge itself. So if the trend is not clean, if it's not prominent, then I kind of want to stay away. But if you can see some evidence that, okay, CAD Yen is breaking through the highs again, still seeing higher highs and higher lows, a retest of the level would be a nice trade. And of course, we've got a lovely target there to work with at 109.500, we'll call it 400. So that's the plan next week for CAD Yen. Let's see if we can get a nice break and retest of 108. And then, yeah, looking at some buys into 109.400. Okay, so pound USD up next. Looks like we have finally broke out the consolidation. I have been complaining a little bit with the consolidation for pound USD, saying that I'm not really interested in that range, but if we do start breaking out of it, I would be interested because we've had quite a healthy range here. We have seen a nice bearish trend, as we can see, over the past couple of weeks or so. So I said that this is most likely just a range to kind of continue that momentum, but until we actually break through that, then it shows me, okay, pound USD is still bearish. Because at the same time, it looks like we're breaking to the downside. We could have easily broke to the upside and we could look for the reversal. So I was kind of neutral, waiting for either or to happen. And it looks like we have broke to the downside. So I am looking to continue that momentum. There is a daily target I'm looking for us to come back and retest. It looks like we have seen a kind of like a weird head and shoulder pattern, if you will. Left shoulder over there, head over there, and a kind of like a weird right shoulder. And now price is starting to break through that neckline. So for me, I'm looking at potentially a bigger reversal with pound USD. If this sustains, we could be looking at the market starting to trend to the downside. We have been bullish for quite a while, ever since the market made, I think was it all-time lows for pound USD? I can't remember, but we made some real crucial lows down there. So we could be looking at a reversal of this bullish trend since the 22nd of September last year, and now coming in September this year. So it's pretty much a bullish trend for about a year. Looks like it might be over, especially with us breaking through the lows here. But nonetheless, next week, I'm looking for us to come back into this resistance, now turn support. So next week, just looking at selling opportunities. This is obviously now going to be a strong area of resistance with support. The market is already wicked into it. Had some news on Friday, so already seen some evidence that the market is holding strong on that level. If we can maintain that, I do like the sells here, retesting that level. We do have a lower time frame trend line we can work with too, adding some nice confidence to the position, as you can see with all those successive lower highs there. 1, 2, 3, potentially 4. Well, kind of is 4 because we did take up those lows, but if we can come back and retest that, maybe wick into the trend line, sort of a similar opportunity to AU, that would be a nice place to look for some shorts, stop loss above the zone. As long as we stay underneath that, we'll be expecting a lot more downside. We've got some nice healthy targets around 1.245. So that's the plan for pound USD. Market's still bearish, and now I want us to stay below that range. If we do come back inside the range, I'll be pausing on pound USD again, because if we're back in the range, it's 50-50, anything can happen. This potentially could have been a fake out. Now the market might want to move higher, so that definitely is a possibility as well. So for me, definitely bearish on pound USD, but we must stay below this level at 1.265. And yes, my shorts on the hourly do look very, very good for pushback down to 1.245 next week. Okay, so on to pound CAD. So yeah, pound CAD did break to the downside, took a loss on that position this week, but things are looking quite bearish now. I wouldn't say anything has changed really with the higher time frame. The higher time frame for me is still comfortably bullish until we start breaking through some key lows on the daily chart. That's when I'll take a pause on that higher time frame bias. But definitely from a 4H perspective, with us breaking through the trend line, not holding on to the key level of support, which I was buying from this week, breaking through that. Looks like we're holding that as resistance. Looks like we're holding the trend line as resistance as well. Looks like we could be in for some more downside from a 4H perspective, or at least from an intra-week perspective next week. So could be looking at next pushback to 1.69. I would definitely keep an eye out on this area here. That looks like a decent first target to have. But if we can hold on to this level here, 1.715, some opportunity to pound USD, holding back onto that same resistance we wicked into after the news we had on Friday. If we can hold on to that same area of confluence, we could be looking at pushback down to 1.69, back to where we came from with this bullish trend. So yeah, pound CAD, I am still bullish on the higher time frames. We haven't broken through any significant structure, but because of what the 4H is doing, creating these lower lows and lower highs on the lower time frame. In fact, let me go to the hourly time frame to see a little bit better. As we can see, with the lower lows and lower highs here on the hourly chart, and obviously breaking through the area of confluence here, holding that as resistance. This tells me there is more downside to be had for pound CAD, likely to see a push into 1.69, 1.7, 250 first, and then potentially 1.69 down there. So that's kind of how I'm looking to tackle pound CAD into the next week. Not really want to be looking to buy this anymore, since that area of confluence has failed. Now we're holding as resistance. Sales are starting to look very good next week. So let's see if we can hold on to 1.715 early next week, because we're kind of already trading at that zone. So Monday London session, Monday New York, see what type of price action we get there. If we see it justified, sales can look good probably for the remainder of the week. So that's the plan for pound CAD, back down to 1.69. Okay, so pound yen, still bullish on this one. Looks like we're getting some nice retracement now. I'm looking at 183 for some buys and a retest of this resistance here. And a lovely move to the upside. The market looks like it's pulling back. We're getting a little bit corrective in this area here as well, almost like consolidation. So I'm looking to see what we can do in this area here. If I can see the necessary price action, some nice wicks, nice shift of momentum, buys will be looking good for next week. And possibly just a push back to the highs there. I mean, I would keep an eye out on this area here as well. We took a brief pause there before price dropped to the downside. So that could be a nice place which the market might react with, which could make up for a good TP for us. If you don't want to push it all the way back to the highs. So that's another sensible place for a target. But again, knowing what the higher time frames are doing, the daily, the weekly, the monthly, everything is still pretty bullish with these pairs. So every time I see the market retrace and fall to the downside, I'm always expecting us to sooner or later find support and head right back to the highs and possibly create some higher highs as well, because that's what the market has been doing for quite a while, ever since we created the low of January. So pretty much this whole year, since the start of January, since the start of the year, the market has been successive, the higher highs and higher lows. So who am I to say that trend is going to end? I mean, it will end at some point, but I at least want to see the market start breaking through some key structure first, start giving me some profound lower lows and lower highs to work with. Then I'll be looking to scrap that bullish bias and switch to the bearish side of things. But at the moment, there isn't anything that contradicts that bullish bias just yet. So looking at move to the upside, coming to a nice level of resistance, now turn support. I think we are coming to the 0.618 as well. Well, almost 0.618. We may wick into it as well. So it's in that kind of 0.5, 0.618 vicinity. So a nice area of confluence from the fib. If we can hold that area, see the necessary price action, buys do look good from 183 back to 185,500 and potentially back to highs around 186,500 next week. Okay, so over to gold. So gold, I'm still bearish on this one. We have seen some nice upside this week, which we were expecting. The gold has been very bearish, but also very sluggish as well with the price action. Just not really showing much momentum, a lot of wicks, a lot of kind of mixed candles, not really seeing much momentum. But we did just poke through the lows there on the left around 1890. And since then, I'm expecting to see some retracement. We have seen that. And I do think there's still more upside to be had for gold. I'm looking for price to come into this area here. Broken support term resistance around 1930, 1940. I think we're coming to the 50% of this move as well. So I do want to see a bit more upside for gold. However, we are obviously rejecting this particular area here around 1920 quite well. I'm not seeing too much confidence at this area, so I'm not really interested in taking shorts unless I start to see some really nice structure develop. Some nice swings, lower lows and lower highs, and then I may look to get involved. But at the moment, it's just a solid level of resistance which the market has created and holding on to. So potentially we might sell off from that area. So it's up to you if you want to look to trade from there. Me, myself, I can see a lot better possibilities, a little bit higher. So this is where I'll be waiting for my selling opportunities around that area. We may or may not get there, but I know that I would want to make sure I'm risking my capital on trades that make sense to me, not just because I think that's where price might form a high or not, and move in my direction. So I'm still focused on the highs or on that level of resistance around 1935, but you keep an eye out 1920 as well. Unless we start to create some nice price action from there, I won't really consider looking to short from this area. So still bullish on gold in terms of I can see a little bit more upside to be had, but I am looking for that longer term bearish move. I have been talking about 1850, 1860, this area here. So yeah, in between the both, so around 1855, looking for a push back down into that resistance. We broke through, never came back for a retest, so it's still a nice fresh level of support I can see gold coming back into. But again, that's more longer term. I think even if we do get sales next week for gold, probably to look at just taking it back to the low there. Nothing too fancy with gold there, but yeah, still focusing on 1930, 1940 for some shorts. Keep an eye on some price action, waiting for confirmations, and looking to sell gold right back to where it came from, down at 1890. Okay, so Bitcoin, not much this week, pretty much just consolidation. I think Bitcoin's taken a rest after being very, very bearish last week, as we can see with that big move. I'm still looking for Bitcoin to take out these lows here on the left. So that's kind of still the plan of action, coming back down to these areas longer term as well. So that's still what I'm looking at for Bitcoin after this move to the downside. However, we need to see some retracement because it doesn't really make too much sense looking to sell Bitcoin right now unless you're already in it up there. So I did say last week we do have a brief period of support here in the lower time frames at 27,700. Also, this would be a very nice place for a short. We broke through, never had a retest, so that would be a nice place for a retest and then some sells. But again, it's very, very far away. I doubt we get up there, and even if we do, the sells might not look that good again because we might see a very impulsive push to get there. But yeah, going forward for Bitcoin, I'm looking for these lows to be taken out. So what I want to see is some retracement. At the moment, we've got pretty much this consolidation, so not really in the mood for that. But if you can see a test of this area, that'd be very nice. Maybe there might be some shorts within here if we develop, maybe create some lower lows and lower highs around this here on the lower time frames. There might be some shorts within this, but it's too early doors for me to tell if there will be some shorts or not. We'll probably understand that as more price action print, as we get more candlesticks. We can probably make a better decision within the week next week. But at the moment, still want to see some retracement away from this level of support, and then again looking to tap the lows of Bitcoin at around 25k, looking for this support level to break. And then of course, like I mentioned earlier, we've got some of these levels to target later on once we break through that support level, or at least if we break through that support level. So yeah, Bitcoin's still bearish. Let's see if we can get some retracement. 27,700 would be nice, 28,800 would be nice as well. But yeah, I just want to see some retracement and still expecting a lot more downside for Bitcoin in the near future. Okay, so last but not least, our bonus pair, which for this week is dollar Swiss. Now, dollar Swiss has been very choppy. Direction has been a little bit but it looks like we are starting to clean up, starting to break out that consolidation, start seeing some nice momentum coming back into the market, which is the most important thing as well. So I do like the longs going forward. For dollar Swiss, DXY is obviously looking quite bullish as well. I can see a bit more upside for that one as well. But dollar Swiss, more importantly, has broken through some key lows here on the left. So this was our key low, which gave us our last pullback. Market's obviously broken through that quite aggressively. Now the market is breaking back above it again. So I'm looking for us to come back and retest this level of support. This is kind of the support we broke through before seeing all of this momentum. So that looks likely for us to get back and retest that particular area. But first, I want to see a nice pullback, come back and retest this area here, maybe potentially wick into the trend line as well. And if we can hold this area, I will be expecting a pushback to 0.89. The market has been bullish, but obviously very choppy. But of course, we have been seeing higher highs and higher lows, so it does play into that bullish trend idea. But ever since we kind of saw this big break to the upside, now things look a lot clearer and make a lot more sense. And the fact that we've got a big level of support, which was resistance, is now going to be acting as support again. So if we can hold this 0.882 area, I will be looking for price to kind of just fill that gap, fill that range back to the upside into this particular area here. Then possibly we might see a bigger sell-off, because overall I'm still pretty bearish on dollar Swiss. If I look at the daily time frame, the daily time frame is comfortably bearish as well, but we are breaking through some significant structure, so I'm expecting us to get to the next one, and then maybe we can look at some bigger sells later on. So the kind of the idea behind dollar Swiss is some nice counter trend buys, or maybe some longer term sells, maybe the week after or later on. But I really do like the buy, since we are breaking through with good momentum. We're back above some key support. I wasn't too sure if the market was going to sell off for dollar Swiss and move to the downside, so I was kind of waiting for us to break through structure. Whether it was going to be to the upside, to the downside, I wasn't too sure. But obviously we have broke to the upside now, so that clears that. Out of the way. So now looking for the retest, continuation to the upside, back to 0.89 next week. So keep an eye out for some longs on dollar Swiss. But yeah, guys, that brings us to the end of the weekly analysis. If you have found it useful, please be sure to drop a like and subscribe. It really does help out the channel. Leave a comment down below any particular markets you're looking at. I'm interested, or any markets that I haven't mentioned in the video. I'm interested to find out what you guys are looking at going into next week. But guys, thank you so much for watching the video. Make sure you do hit the bell so you don't miss out on any streams or uploads in the future. But guys, have a fantastic weekend. Make sure you rest up, ready for the next week. But yeah, guys, drop a like, and I will see you guys next time.